open up a notebook and we will walk through the Sendex raw data and play around with it, just so that we can actually get some appreciation and understanding of the actual data and the sentiment before we go through to the algorithm itself, or the IDE itself. So Sendex. Okay, now again I am gonna copy and paste this across so that you can actually have a reference here. Later on I'm gonna post this for your reference. The notebook again is making use as an adaptation of the original notebook and post by Jamie, and this is the link to the site that I already just browsed through and walked through with you, and there's a little bit of description there. So the first thing that we want to do is just import some basic libraries. So instead of typing them all up, I'll just copy and paste across. So if you look at the first line is import matplotlib. Later on we want to do some visualization. We want to import pandas as PD, import blaze as BZ, and from the zipline utility trading calendar we want to import the actual so-called function called get trading days. And from control.interactive.data.sendex we will import sentiment. The first thing that we want to do is we already import the actual data itself. Okay, so let's just have a look at what sentiment looks like and what kind of data type it is. As you can see here, the type of sentiment is that the data type is actually a blaze. Okay, so it's a blaze expression. So just to dig a little bit further, we look at the actual fields itself, just to see what's being provided. Okay, so you can see that the symbols, the sentiment signal, SID, as of date, and timestamp. So there are really one actual signal in there called sentiment. So let's just have a look at what this looks like. Remember earlier when we actually look at the so-called documentation, it states that it varies from -3 to +6. And here you are, you can actually see that it does indeed range there. So let me just see if we can actually look at the sentiment itself and we can actually pull some data out. Okay, there we go. Right, so you can see here the first 8 observations is for Apple. The sentiment signal varies from 6 to -1. The SID is provided as well, and the dates as well as the timestamp. So let's just explore the data itself a little bit. I'm just gonna label this and call this you extract the data to explore and analyze the data itself. Okay, so let's just store this. Remember, we want to actually, in order for us to actually perform any analysis, it's better to do it in pandas data frame. So hence the reason that I am actually doing compute using Blaze, and that will actually convert the actual data itself into pandas data frame. So I'm going to store this pandas data frame into this variable called sendex, and leaving the original data in the form of Blaze, the original data. Okay, now let's just check out the so-called data types. And you can see that it is indeed pandas. And now that we know that it is pandas, we can actually just do the basic or the typical head, just to examine the actual data itself and see what it looks like. Okay, so you can see that this is similar to what we looked at earlier. Okay, and we also want to look at the actual data, so-called the description, and just check out what is the range. So minimum is -3, maximum is 6. The mean is 3.4. So generally people are positive about the stocks in this database. So remember, we go from -3 to 6 and the standard deviation is 2.85. So this is just to actually get a gauge of it, and we're gonna just plot the histogram just to visualize this histogram. And I want a bin of 50, and I want to squelch this. Okay, right, maybe that's too wide. All right, there we go. Now if you look at this, the mean is around here. This is the extreme, so there's actually a lot of very positive news. There's not much in the way of minus here and also here. So by and large is actually mostly in this extreme. So if I turn that down to 5, and what does it look like? Okay, not very pretty. So let's just leave it at 10. Okay, what we're gonna do now is just let's explore a little bit on the stock Apple. And we're gonna store the SID. First of all, we're gonna use symbols, and we extract the actual SID code, security ID code, from the database and store it in the variable called Apple_SID. Okay, and now we're gonna pull out the sentiment by selecting first of all the company. Okay, and we're gonna have a peek at the underlying data itself. All right, so here we go. We have Apple, and this is the sentiment signal for this period of time. The SID and also the as of date and timestamp is returned. Now we want to actually look at Apple for a specific period of time, 2013, December 1st onwards. So that's how you actually select it. So you can actually select it by, first of all, because sentiment actually has or contain all the data. So we want to actually narrow our study into just Apple. So we basically make sure that the sentiment selection or the selection is just on Apple itself, and also the date that we're looking at is from 2013 December 1st onwards. And now we're gonna look at the actual stocks for a specific period of time. So I'm going to create a date mask for the period of 2013 December 1st, as well as 2014 December 1st. So basically for a period of 1 year, we're looking at from 2013 December until 2014 December. And the stocks that we are looking at is Apple, to be precise. And we're going to calculate this expression and store that into this variable here. And of course, we need to actually convert this into a data frame. All of that is in the form of, I'm sure by now you know the steps is to actually do a BZ compute, because this is in the form of Blaze. We can't actually easily manipulate it, so it's better to actually convert it to the data frame. And then we have a look at what are the datas available, which is what we have here. So symbol, sentiment, signal, and we just do a simple plot. Okay, and plotting the sentiment signal over the period of time. Basically, x-axis is our date column and y-axis is our signal, and you can see that it actually fluctuates back and forth quite a fair bit. And it went from 6 and will go all the way down to -3. So the actual data seems to be quite volatile over this period of time. Okay, having done that, we have a rough feeling or rough view of the data right now. So the next step that we're going to do is to define our factor to study the actual underlying stock itself. And basically using the sentiment signal from Sendex as our factor and see how it actually performs.